In this humiliating breaking story of MAGA stupidity, the F around and find out party is at it again, folks. But this might be the most ironic of the bunch because MAGA Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, is actually reigniting a massive scandal that him and his wife were caught up in last month that has largely left the conversation of the mainstream media despite how heinous and dystopian it is. And in his attempt today to silence the press that was investigating said scandal, he has now brought it back to the forefront of our attention, and it is wreaking havoc on both his and his wife's political futures. So with DeSanctimonious's help, let's re-expose his and his wife's $10 million Medicaid embezzlement scandal, then take a look at the humiliating clapback he got after attacking the Orlando Sentinel, and cap it off by exposing how the whole fiasco has jeopardized the political future of his chosen successor, his wife. I genuinely don't know what it is with Floridians and electing people who like to defraud the Medicare system like they've done multiple times with Rick Scott, but perhaps if y'all drop a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel, we can get this video out to more people so maybe they won't make these same mistakes again. Now, before we get to the hopefully imminent destruction of the DeSantis regime, here's a quick refresher of the convoluted and despicable scandal that Ron DeSantis and his wife Casey have been marred by for the past month.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis under increased scrutiny over millions of dollars supposed to be used to help struggling families, instead diverted to political committees set up to help the governor further his political agenda. CBS News has learned that $10 million meant for taxpayers was instead sent to the Hope Florida Foundation, a nonprofit originally created to support First Lady Casey DeSantis' signature program, which was called Hope Florida. Part of this money was put toward Governor DeSantis' successful political fight against the constitutional amendment that would have legalized recreational marijuana in Florida. This story has some complexities to it, so gently, if you'd be so kind, walk our audience through the complexities and the questions.
All right, so here's what I can basically say is that the state of Florida learned that they were being overbilled for Medicaid and that they were owed $67 million. And the Ron DeSantis administration told that company, okay, return $57 million to the Florida taxpayers and send $10 million to the Hope Florida Foundation. Now, under state rules and laws, you are supposed to reveal any details of a settlement with a company that you're returning money to the state of Florida to. They never reported the $10 million to Hope Florida Foundation. That came out later. From there, within days of the money going into the Hope Florida Foundation, a nonprofit, the money was then diverted to two political committees that then transferred the money to a third political committee, Keep Florida Clean, which was being run by then Governor Ron DeSantis' chief of staff, James Uthmeyer, who today is the sitting attorney general in Florida. And they used that money, it is believed, to fight the marijuana initiative. So to put it as succinctly as possible, money that should have been returned to taxpayers ended up in a political action committee controlled and designated by the governor to fight a political campaign.
Now, despite the insanity of that, the DeSantises have gotten away virtually scotch-free on this. And because of everything going on in the media and with Trump, the riots, the story has kind of fallen to the wayside and people aren't talking about it as much anymore. Which is just so crazy when you consider that Florida literally has a history of being defrauded through Medicare by their elected officials. And I'm just going to throw this up on the screen right now. It's not even a sponsored post, but we have partnered with Chapter Medicare for this exact reason, because there are so many sharks in the water in the Medicare and Medicaid space. And it is so sickening to see what they do to the most vulnerable people in our society. And that is why Chapter was founded. So if you are 65 and above or have issues with Medicare, definitely give them a call. It's all completely free and they are there to help you navigate this insanity. But while that scandal was largely starting to get swept under the rug, what DeSantis did today has brought it back, thankfully, to the surface. Raw Story broke this story today. The Orlando Sentinel editorial board took a firm stance against what it claimed was intimidation and bullying by the DeSantis administration over its investigation into a charity connected to the governor's wife. The board reported that it received an unsigned cease and desist letter from the Florida Department of Children and Families demanding the reporter Jeffrey Schweers stop his, quote, reporting for a story about funding through Hope Florida, the nonprofit spearheaded by the governor's wife, Casey. The letter accuses Schweers of trying to harass and intentionally cause distress to foster families by threats and coercion to get them to talk to him for the story, which is ironic because threats and coercion are exactly what the DeSantis administration is doing to this reporter. With the board writing, this attempt to bully our newsroom away from a story is clearly intended to be chilling, but it won't impact our reporting. Hope Florida has already had a lot of questions raised about its funding and grants, not just by the Sentinel and other media in Florida, but also by state lawmakers. More on that in a second, but the editorial board detailed how it found evidence, quote, that the state used Hope Florida as a funnel to divert millions of federal Medicaid settlement money from its intended destination, health care for poor people, to two political organizations opposing the November ballot amendment on recreational marijuana. A state representative who investigated the charity said the fund transfer could lead to, quote, money laundering or other criminal charges. Adding, quote, in the real world, if someone defrauded the state or a charity out of $10 million, they'd go to prison. The editorial board quoted Sentinel executive Roger Simmons saying, quote, we stand by our stories and reject the state's attempt to chill free speech and encroach our First Amendment right to report on an important issue. The state's characterization of our reporter's conduct is completely false. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that all doesn't bode well for the woman leading the charity, Casey DeSantis, who, according to The Guardian, is also looking to become the governor when Ron DeSantis' term ends in 2027. And while it is still unclear if this will actually sink her chances or DeSantis's, The Bulwark actually did a deep dive on this a couple weeks ago and noted that there has been a criminal probe launched into DeSantis and the charity by his own party.
Couple questions here. So the state Republicans in the state government were investigating this, which I guess from the outsider's perspective, it's kind of interesting because there's been this perception that DeSantis has the state on lock and that the Republican Party is lockstep behind him. But it's very evident that there are lawmakers in the state party that do not feel like they need to run cover for DeSantis here.
No, not at all. In fact, it's there. You can almost count them on one hand in the legislature who are actively out there defending the governor on all this stuff.
What happened? Because the outsider's perspective, it's a little bit befuddling, right? It's like DeSantis, we assumed, had the state on lock, that they were doing his bidding.
Well, and this is basically long simmering tensions. I mean, early on, DeSantis, came into office. He had a lot of goodwill. He was very popular, and he's still very popular among voters in the state. There's no doubt about that. But, he basically has browbeaten the legislature year after year after year and not fostered relationships with the people in the legislature. This has been building in the legislature for years. Privately, they've been telling us that, lawmakers have told us to express frustration to us over this. And it came to a head with this new House Speaker and Senate President. Both of them were like, look, you're a lame duck now. These are your 2 final years in office. We're not going to do whatever you want. And it's not like the governor was kind of operating in a spirit of openness with them. With the prospect of a criminal investigation going on, it looks like this thing could last a while. There are at least going to be a few more news stories out of it.
So we'll have to see where this goes from here, and we will keep you updated here on the Really American channel. But I'm curious to hear what you all think, and hopefully if DeSantis keeps attacking the free press as well as his fellow party members in his own legislature, then this should lead to a further criminal probe that will at least make it harder for him to do the things he wants to do, and at best, wake some Floridians up and hopefully alert them to the potential problematic nature of a Casey DeSantis governorship in the future. Thanks for watching, folks. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you're not, and drop a blue heart to let us know you made it this far. For Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse. I'll see you guys in the next one.